Hi there, this is Lisa Becerra with Phasing Out of Trauma, and we just wanted to bring some more attention to domestic violence. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We are here in the middle of October. I hope that you've seen this other places and that this information just helps you understand a little bit more about what a domestic violence survivor is still going through. The first thing we'd like to talk about is what domestic violence is. Domestic violence trauma, right? What it is it's a rewiring of the nervous system, because survivors live in a state of constant alertness. They're constantly ready to have danger flood them and to be in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. Okay, and their bodies stay ready for this danger much like a combat veteran, even when they're in safety. So even when they're no longer in the relationship or when they are in a safer environment, they're still ready on a trigger's notice, right, to jump into action in order to stay safe, whatever that looks like for them. But what trauma is not, is it's not permanent. This rewiring of the nervous system is not the end-all be-all, right? While trauma isn't logical, and while the women can't just think their way through it saying, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, they can learn to let their body feel safe again. Safety isn't just a matter of not being in danger, it's a matter of letting the body feel that it is at peace and there is no threats, and that's an emotional sensation. This takes time to build up, but that can happen most effectively with supportive community, by integrating breath work, by feeling safe to listen to the sensations the body is having, and to have faith-filled practices. Another thing trauma is a distortion of our self-worth, okay? Abuse survivors can convince themselves of lies like I deserved it, or I'm not good enough to be truly loved, right? Because here they are in this scenario, and if they were good or they were worthwhile, then surely God would have brought them somebody who really cared for them and who protected them rather than hurt them, right? So this is a big thing for domestic violence survivors to get over, and healing begins with them experiencing love, being loved for who they are, people who speak the truth and who accept them wholeheartedly, and create safe communities where their story can be heard, they can be seen and validated, and they can start to reclaim God's view of themselves. Because even though trauma distorts self-worth, what it can't do is it cannot take away your belovedness. Trauma shapes how we see ourselves, right? Domestic violence survivors see themselves through the lens of their experiences, but it's not their identity. Survivors are beloved children of God who have gone through domestic violence. They are not just domestic violence survivors. Another thing trauma does, especially domestic violence trauma does, is it disrupts relationships. Okay, so survivors of domestic violence often struggle with feeling safe in relationships because, let's face it, their relationships, their primary relationships that they have needed to depend on for safety, for security, for shelter, possibly even since they were young, have been dangerous. Because of this, they can isolate and shy away from entering into relationships because any relationship feels unsafe. Not just intimate partner, but friendships and even work-related relationships can be unsafe. They can also cling to certain relationships and people please and go above and beyond the call of duty per se, right? In order to keep a relationship. And they can also feel unsafe depending on anyone and feel like they have to be independent, they have to do it all, and they will not ask anyone for help and feel like they can never rely on someone. So while trauma disrupts relationships, it doesn't mean that the survivors will never be able to trust again. It is really wrong to have to learn to love through survival. And when that happens, connection feels confusing because the people you depend on are hurting you, but you need to depend on them for survival. So it puts them in a paradoxical situation. And healing happens through establishing relationships rooted in respect, where the other person now trusts the survivor, this beloved child of God, where the other person brings a sense of peace and respects their dignity. How phasing out of trauma helps. We are a Christ-centered, peer-led trauma recovery group based out in San Diego, and we help women to calm their minds and reconnect with their body. We have a general group that meets every week, and we have phase work that women can go through, but just that process of coming in, meeting, going through a routine together, having that established predictability. And then we have practices that help them reconnect with their bodies. Through our work, our 18 phases, we allow women to regain their self-work. They see and hear responses to their stories in this supportive community. They complete self-reflections, and they get information that is grounded in biblical truth. As they move through the phases and as they gain that sense of community, they learn to accept their self-worth. They learn to embrace their dignity and respect their own boundaries, where they start and their responsibility commences, and then where their responsibility stops because someone else's starts. They learn how to say no and how to say yes based on free will, not based on survival choices. And most of all, they see health being modeled. They see women at other phases growing and gaining these things, and that gives them hope and faith that they too are on that same road, they're on that same path, and they're going to receive these same things. If you would like to find out more about phasing out of trauma, you can visit phasingoutoftrauma.zohosites.com. And we hope this information has been helpful and might be able to help you have those difficult conversations with people you may know who are experiencing domestic violence. Knowing that they're seen, that they're heard, and that they can talk about these things to other people is important. Thank you.